All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of From the Source with me, Christian Coley, your host. And now we have a new face, Gabe Mendelsohn from Woo. Gabe, welcome to the show, I guess.
Thank you very much. Honored to be here on the source.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm the source from the source.
The
We're
source.
talking to experts all the time, learning about who they are, how they got here, and what they're seeing in the industry. And who better than a major player in staffing tech, Woo, and one of our partners. So I want to get into what Woo does, and we'll do that at some point. But first, I want to learn a little bit more about you, Gabe. You have a unique background. So let's just get right into it. You're not from the States, so and I'm from the States. A lot of our partners from the States. Where are you from? And where'd you go to school? Tell me about a little bit about that.
Yeah. So first of all, actually was born in the States. Grew up in New York and then New Jersey until age of 10.
Okay, stand
But at
corrected.
this, so but there's the English.
Yeah, yeah.
And then at the age of 10, moved with my family to Tel Aviv, right
Okay.
outside Tel Aviv, and I've been living there since, which is a high tech hub. So I'll
Yeah,
get into how I kind of transitioned into that.
yeah,
But essentially, yeah, grew up here. Great beaches, great weather, great food. Can't complain.
yeah.
And yeah, so then I'm going to okay. So then eventually went to Tel Aviv University,
Hmm.
studying in the engineering school and in the business school,
Oh,
and
cool.
found my way into high tech like almost everyone else here. A little bit of a path. There's military service that's mandatory here, so I went through
Right.
developing some soft skills, if you will,
Yeah.
hard
Yeah.
soft skills,
Right.
um, and then eventually going into high tech and into recruiting tech, which is such an interesting industry to be in, as you probably know very, very
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yes, obviously that area is such a tech hub. But actually curious that you touched on that. Do you have a couple of things you could share what you learned from your time in the military? Soft skills. I mean, like if you were, and also maybe how it's translating to what you're doing today. But yeah, just curious what you took out of that time.
Yeah, so I learned a ton, went through a lot of hardship. I was a commander there in the paratroopers, actually.
Okay.
So learned a lot of leadership. Right now, I have a team of 4 SDRs that I'm
Hmm.
managing, which is, it's a whole world at the end of the day, learning a lot about how you can talk to people and you want them, you have an interest in their performance, but actually looking at them as a person and knowing that they're going through hardships with you and that you're working towards the same goal. A lot of those leadership skills that are soft skills that can be applied anywhere, I actually got from that background. So it was very special time. It wasn't easy, a lot of outdoors.
Yeah.
But yeah, glad to be in an office with air conditioning.
Yeah, different, right? I mean, I spent my time in sports for a while and I was outside for years, right? And it was kind of weird to transition into, inside and in front of a computer. I still have to like get up and move around a lot. Actually, so, it's a tough time. You're pushing yourself probably mentally and physically during that time. I'm curious, does that help I mean, and that job is kind of a battle inherently because you're hearing no all the time. You're working hard, trying to build business. I can kind of see how that helps deal with some like ups and downs, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, on one hand, you have a feeling of, okay, I've done so much. I've been through nights without sleeping, multiple nights without sleeping,
Yeah.
and walking all this distance with weight. And you say, I can do anything at the same time. Just because you can push through and just because you could do something doesn't mean that the other side necessarily wants it. So if I'm an SDR, I could say, I will make 1,000 calls. And I started off as an SDR at Woo, actually,
Right. Okay.
before
Cool.
running the team. And I could say I can make 1,000 calls a day. I could say I can make 500 calls a day. But at the end of the day, I need to be maintaining a relationship. I need to be thinking about, wait, what if I'm in the other person's shoe? So what if
Mm,
I'm talking about from their side? So it was an interesting point of coming from a place where I could do anything and I'm going to do anything and everything in my power. But at the same time, I need to do it strategically and to have empathy when I'm talking to these people. It's not just a game of force.
right. It's not just a volume game. It's like you want to mix that volume with quality. Um,
Exactly.
and I'm not comparing like military service to like, an office job, but I think it's funny because SDRs is one of the hardest jobs you can have. And it is a kind of a battle, I think, in its own right. But if you've done something really hard before and pushed yourself, I think it does maybe set yourself up easier for that tough role, right?
For sure.
because it's not easy. Well, tell me about your time at Woo. You mentioned like where'd you start? You know, you started as the SDR you just shared, and kind of to where you are where you are now.
So I joined Woo when they were relatively new to selling. So Woo has been
Okay.
in development for a while, very techy
Hmm.
product. But we started selling now a little bit, maybe over 2 years ago. So I came in essentially when we were very fresh to selling. And it was very interesting. We were dealing with all these, which I'll go into it, but candidate records and updating, and
Yeah.
started off as an SDR. So everything was outbound. We found a lot of strategic ways, and we actually rarely used marketing. It was almost completely outbound, which is very atypical
Yeah.
in this realm. And we
Yep.
found that it was just very interesting. People were very interested to hear. Also, it was right after the Corona boom.
Yep.
So there were so many openings. Everyone was hearing about AI. The FOMO started. Everyone, when they heard
Yep.
specific concepts that they were interested in, they were happy to take a look and be interested. So that's essentially where I started with Woo. At a certain point, we moved not only to be updating candidate records, which again I'll go into, but we also onto the sales side with business contacts. And that was opening up an entire new market. It was upselling our current clients, right? And
Yep.
getting them to now be able to leverage their past relationships with business contacts with hiring managers, and also going into new markets that we couldn't necessarily do with the candidates. And so then I was tasked with leading those efforts and leading the SDR team. And then eventually, what we saw, which is a huge, and this is exactly what we're doing right now with the partnerships, is that there are a lot of partners within the ecosystem, whether it's a specific ATS, whether there's any ATS, where there are a lot of new tools that don't necessarily step on each other's toes, but rather complement each other.
Right.
And people are buying tools left and right. But they don't necessarily know all of the use cases that they can even do with their tool, or how they can combine it with another tool that they have. They just never heard of the synergies. So the
Right.
partnerships is now a huge, which I'm leading now, which is a huge opportunity to speak to our clientele and to your clientele and to say, hey, I don't know if you knew this, but with this amazing piece of tech that you can use, you could do X, Y, and Z. So it's a little bit of a microphone to basically tell all the clients and maybe potential new clients, hey, this is great that you have this. You could actually use this in cohesiveness with this other product. So
Yep.
that's kind of where we're at right now. And very interesting stuff at Woo. Had some of our
Yeah.
best
That's
months in the summer, which is odd,
Yeah, I know it
atypical
is
also.
odd. That's awesome. Yeah, so that's awesome that you started as an SDR too, which is great because you learned the business, you learned the product, right? And now you can kind of move into another area. So yeah, tell me about what Woo does because you're a partner of ours, and the problems you solve are awesome because I was dealing with that for years when I was back at Bullhorn and talking to staffing firms all the time. But yeah, tell me about Woo and the problems you're solving.
So essentially, this is what we're saying. We're saying that recruiters are coming in the morning, or salespeople at recruiting agencies, and where's the first place that they're going? They log on their computer. Where's the first place that they're going? 99% of the time is LinkedIn, a job board, right?
Hmm.
And they might have been around for 2, 3, 4 years. They might have 50,000 records in their database, 100,000 records in their database. These are people that maybe they've vetted, maybe they have a past history that they've placed before, maybe they were in the process. And these are people in their area typically, if they were putting them in their database. With that many records, you definitely don't need to be spending that much on job boards to find candidates externally, right?
Yep.
Besides for that, 70% of the candidates that you're going to end up placing, for example, which is a stat from Bullhorn, are already in your database, but we're going outside and looking at them at LinkedIn using InMails, spending all this money on external spend. And so what we saw that was a problem. Actually, our founders had their own agency, and they saw that problem. They felt it on their skin, and they were like, "We got to solve this." So we found that one of the most effective ways to solve this is to actually have relevant and up to date, accurate data inside your database. So once I put Christian in my database in my ATS, maybe way back when he was at Bullhorn, right?
Yep.
And he was an account executive.
Yep.
And that's great. But if I reach out to you right now for an account executive job, what do you think you're going to answer me? Take
Nah.
a
Yeah.
hike, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so essentially, what we're doing is we're plugging into any ATS and we're continuously updating it. So now instead of being written as an account executive at Bullhorn, you're now VP sales at SourceFlow. Same thing with business contacts. If there's a hiring manager we made a placement with at SourceFlow, but now that hiring manager is actively hiring for a new company, that's data that our salespeople want to know as a salesperson at a recruiting agency, and we're helping them uncover that by just keeping their database updated, all of those fields up to date.
Yeah, and so it sounds like this is a good use case for on the sales front as well, right? Um, and so I mean, that's awesome. I got questions all the time when I was talking to my clients. Is like, oh, how do I know? Do you have something where like, they move a job and automatically updates the ATS? And for the longest time, it was really like a no, right? We could facilitate ways for them to update information, right? But that was more manual. But it sounds like you're automating all of this today, right? So when they go to the ATS, that information's like all up to date and they're ready to go kind of after either a candidate or even a new client that might have moved somewhere else, right?
Exactly. And it's all in
Yeah,
the background, meaning it's not that they're having to go in and choosing who they want to update, who they don't, because we don't know. We don't know which hiring manager moved, right? So I can't give you a specific person and say update it and tell me. We're going to just be in the background, plug in. We're going to check with our data providers, give you the best data possible on every single one of your hiring managers actively.
got it. And so I guess the next part of this is what's the biggest trend you're seeing in recruiting lately? I guess if there's a different conversation than maybe 12 months ago, what have you been hearing the last like 6 to 12 months? Yeah,
I think that the key word here is biz dev, right?
yeah,
Everyone is focusing on biz dev. Everyone, I'll split it into two. There's biz dev and their AI, which are the two big trends.
right.
Biz dev is just that in a down market, typically agencies like to focus on biz dev, on winning new business as opposed to candidate acquisition. And they're trying to find ways that they can leverage AI. So I'll bring that into there to then win new business. Now, what's the problem I'm seeing? That once a company is hiring, you can be sure that there are multiple agencies reaching out to that
Of
same poor
course.
hiring manager.
Yeah,
Their inbox is probably filled with messages. And the question is, how can you stick out? And I think actually to SourceFlow's point and tracking marketing and then capturing those leads is once we did all that hard effort and we managed to stand out of all of the agencies and we got that hiring manager's attention, how do we make sure that A, they're converting, right, through our website and not getting stuck at any point? And B, what campaign did it come through? Because I want to take that campaign and I want to spread it all over. So it's a big trend that we're seeing right now that people are trying to win new business. And the big question that everyone's asking is how can I stick out of those 100 agencies that are reaching out to that same poor hiring manager from Boston that all he did was say he's hiring?
yeah. Wow, Gabe, you're selling SourceFlow. I don't know if you're happy over there, woo, but I'm just kidding. No, you're hitting the nail on the head. I mean, we're seeing business development obviously is a major conversation, especially the last 6 to 12 months, and yeah, it's kind of unique how we complement each other, right? Because the website is kind of undervalued in a lot of ways, a way to capture candidates, but also clients, right? People go to job boards, they go to LinkedIn, and those spends are getting ever more larger, but the ROI is kind of more and more questionable, right? But you have a website. How can you optimize your website, your career portal, put more content to capture like business development leads there that are converting? And then you guys play such a huge role in actually now you have quality people and interested people. Now, how do we keep that information up to date, right? And ready to go after them.
Right.
Yeah,
And we might not win that client. We're not going to win every time, right? So maybe we
right.
got their attention and they said they were deciding between three different agencies and they decided to go with another one. But that's still an agency that we put all that marketing effort to get their attention, right? And maybe it
Yeah,
didn't work now around, maybe that hiring manager is going to move to a new company. And this if we could be the first ones to reach out to that hiring manager that's actively well, okay, here's a question. If another company hires a hiring manager, what does that mean about the company? What does that indicate if we're talking about intent?
right.
Probably that they're hiring, right? If they're hiring a
Yeah,
hiring
of
manager.
course.
So if we're the first ones to pick up on that, and it's a lead that we already spent marketing on, that we already got their attention, then let's make sure that we're the first ones to reach out. And that's where we come in, where we say, okay, you did the marketing, you got the lead, you captured it through SourceFlow, it's in your ATS. Now we're going to be the ones to make sure that anything that's could signal intent, we're going to update you on that. We're going to notify you that so that you could send out automations, you could pick up the phone and call them, you could send out an email.
Right. And it makes your automations that more effective, right? Everyone's trying to invest in automation, AI, it's going to be effective if the contact information's right. Right. Um, right.
Yeah,
And so
you're going to
it, yeah, it is what it is. Last part. All right. Kind of a fun curveball here. What is the worst interview experience you've had either as an interviewer or an interviewee?
Thankfully, as an interviewer, everything has been super smooth and super great people.
Okay,
So
cool.
can't complain on
Good,
that side.
good, good, good.
Interviewing. I had one story that I'll never forget, which is I go into the interview and it ended up being very long. It was like a last second kind of, they called me in at night. It was the director of sales that was interviewing me directly, and I get to the meeting, and it's going great, and it's been an hour, 2 hours, great. And then about 2.5 hours in, he's like, I could see the stress on him. He was like, walk with me. And I'm like, okay, sure. Like I'm interviewing.
Of
I'm not gonna
course,
like try and.
yeah, you want to appease, right? You want to go with the flow.
And we step outside, and he does some extracurricular activities, I'll call it. And I'm sitting there like, do I run now? Am I'm definitely not supposed to join him. I definitely don't want to be here.
Or
But
extracurricular illegal activities, I
yeah,
guess. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
got it.
yeah. And it was
Indulging in things that you do after hours, probably. Okay,
probably.
yeah.
And yeah, that was a crazy interviewing experience, let alone to say that that wasn't the best opportunity that I was going to jump on.
And you didn't take the job, obviously.
No,
It
no, no.
wasn't the place for you, right?
Not a
No.
match, not a match. Maybe for someone else. I wonder who's there today, but I wonder if it even
Wow, that's
exists
a new
anymore.
one. I have never heard that happen during an interview. Wow. Except like, I mean, geez, yeah, maybe in like the 80s in finance in New York or
Yeah,
something.
Wall
Like,
Street, maybe
yeah, like this
something,
is
but
kind of like out of Wolf of Wall Street type of thing. Wow, that's a new one. Uh, well, Gabe, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it. You have such a unique background. Who's a great partner of ours, and you guys are doing some really cool things. So I think everyone's going to be really interested in learning about it. But yeah, look forward to continuing our partnership, and thanks for coming on.
thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure. Always a pleasure speaking with you. And we have this amazing partnership. It's incredible. It's bigger and better things from here.
Yeah, absolutely, Gabe. All right, see ya.
Take care.